Everyone knows that one of the small joys of eating at places like KFC or McDonald's is successfully grabbing an extra packet of ketchup. Joking aside, there is a real question that almost no one agrees on. Where exactly should the ketchup go? Some people squeeze it onto an empty spot on the tray. Some put it on the packaging. Some smear it directly onto the food. But there is one place that should be absolutely off limits, no debate, no exceptions. The receipt. Not only should you never eat ketchup that touched a receipt, if ketchup from a receipt gets on your hands, you should wash them immediately. Most food delivery slips, supermarket receipts, and bank receipts are printed on thermal paper. The color developing agent in thermal paper is commonly bisphenol A, also known as BPA. This chemical can pass through the skin and enter the body. Under conditions of heat, moisture, or oil, the transfer of BPA from paper to skin becomes much faster. Repeated contact has been linked to reduced fertility and increased cancer risk. You might laugh this off and think, here we go again, another alarmist social media account talking about toxicity without mentioning dose. Then you continue to use supermarket receipts or movie tickets for journaling, or squeeze ketchup onto a receipt because it looks clean and convenient. The problem is that BPA is one of the most extensively studied chemicals in modern science. By 2025, PubMed has indexed more than 19,000 scientific papers on bisphenol A, and on October 1st this year, a particularly striking study was published in Nature Communications Medicine. The study shows that even very low levels of BPA exposure during early development can cause large-scale disruptions in normal gene function later in life, leading to permanent sex hormone interference. In simple terms, males begin producing excessive female hormones and become more feminized, while females produce excessive male hormones and become more masculinized. And this shift is permanent, not temporary, for life. Here is how the researchers reached this conclusion. Pregnant female rats were exposed to BPA through drinking water at 2 doses. One dose was 0.5 micrograms per kilogram of body weight per day, roughly comparable to average human daily exposure. The other was 50 micrograms per kilogram per day, 100 times higher, which in 2015 was still considered a safe level. Through the mother's bloodstream, BPA reached the unborn pups in the womb. The results showed that regardless of dose, the offspring experienced significant changes in bone marrow gene expression and blood metabolism. In females, 79 to 88% of these genes shifted toward male-like expression patterns. In males, 86 to 89% shifted toward female-like patterns. This means female rats began showing gene activity similar to normal males, and male rats began resembling normal females. Crucially, this was not a temporary effect. The researchers described it as a molecular lock. Once established, the changes were fixed for life, with no possibility of reversal. If you think this is just an animal study and far removed from humans, that may be overly optimistic. The research team compared the rats' blood metabolic data with a database of 2,342 people from Sweden. They found strong overlap between the rats' metabolic profiles and human metabolic syndrome. 6 out of 8 key parameters match closely. In male rats, 87% of the detected changes overlapped with characteristic features of human metabolic syndrome. In female rats, the overlap reached 83%. Metabolic syndrome is not a single disease but a cluster of conditions that greatly increase the risk of type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and stroke. This correlation suggests that the molecular pathways triggered by BPA in rats are very likely present and active in humans as well. Even more concerning is that this damage begins in the fetal stage. BPA can cross the placental barrier and interfere with the expression of genes that are critical for development. Bisphenol A is a colorless compound with the molecular formula C15H16O2. It dissolves easily in most common organic solvents. It is a classic endocrine disrupting chemical. Nearly a century ago, the British biochemist Edward Charles Dodds tested BPA for use as a synthetic estrogen. At the time, its effects were considered too weak for pharmaceutical use. Today, BPA can be produced cheaply and on a massive scale through a condensation reaction between phenol and acetone. Its primary use is in plastics manufacturing. It is found in food and beverage can linings, baby bottles, water bottles, dental sealants, eyeglass lenses. and hundreds of everyday products. It is one of the highest volume chemicals produced globally. Because BPA contains hydroxyl groups, it has mild acidic properties and can act as an electron acceptor in certain reactions. This is exactly why it is used in thermal paper. When heated, BPA melts and triggers colorless dyes to become visible, allowing text, images, or data to appear on receipts. While scientific debate about low-dose BPA effects continues, regulatory positions have shifted dramatically. In April 2023, the European Food Safety Authority released a new scientific opinion stating that dietary exposure to BPA is unsafe. The tolerable daily intake was lowered to 0.2 nanograms per kilogram of body weight per day. That is a reduction of 25,000 times compared to the 2015 assessment. This massive change reflects a fundamental shift in how scientists understand BPA toxicity. And this year, the European Union went further, officially banning BPA from food contact materials. At this point, you might ask, if BPA is so harmful, why are receipts still using it? Why not just stop? Unfortunately, it is not that simple. The main substitutes for BPA in thermal paper are bisphenol S and bisphenol F. These chemicals are produced in similar ways and activate estrogen receptors at levels comparable to BPA. Some also impair mitochondrial function and trigger neurotoxicity. Even worse, they are harder for the human body to metabolize and eliminate. In other words, they are not meaningfully safer. So where should the ketchup go? The danger of BPA lies in repeated, long-term exposure. Since we cannot fully eliminate it at the source, the best approach is to reduce contact. Use glass containers when possible. Avoid touching receipts, especially with wet or oily hands or in hot conditions. If your job requires handling large numbers of receipts, such as cashier or delivery work, wearing gloves is strongly recommended. Back to the original question. If squeezing ketchup onto a receipt is unsafe, what about the paper tray liner? Does that contain BPA too? The paper placed under food on trays is made from completely different materials than thermal receipt paper. It is usually food-grade craft paper or coated paper that does not rely on heat to display text. As a result, it typically does not contain BPA or bisphenol S thermal coatings. So squeezing ketchup onto tray liner paper is much safer than onto a receipt. That said, tray liners have large exposed surfaces and can still be contaminated by packaging or by hands, so they are not sterile. The safest options remain squeezing ketchup directly onto the food, or onto the inside blank areas of food packaging, such as burger wrappers or the inside of fry boxes. These materials are designed to directly contact food and must meet food safety standards, and that is the real answer to where the ketchup should go. If you would like to hear more explanations like this, subscribing is always appreciated. And discussion is welcome.